the slideshow. So this first half is going to be like Creston said about our office, what we do, who we are. So the office of the chief clerk. So the chief clerk of the assembly was established in 1849 when the legislature first met, and the chief clerk position is a nonpartisan officer, and they are elected by the assembly members. They are elected at the beginning of each two-year session, and this December will be the beginning of our next 2 year. And the current chief clerk is Sue Parker, and Miss Parker was elected for the first time in January of 2020. So the main duties of the chief clerk. So the primary purpose of the chief clerk is to serve as the parliamentarian of the assembly and to oversee the production and maintenance of several legislative publications and manage a staff of about 30. What is the role of a parliamentarian? So under Assembly Rule 32, the chief clerk is a parliamentarian of the Assembly, and they're responsible for advising the House on legislative procedures. So if any of you are in a club, perhaps your club uses bylaws or perhaps Robert's Rules of Order to kind of conduct the business of your club. And if there's ever a question as to why you guys do something a certain way, oftentimes you refer to your bylaws or you use Robert's Rules of Order to kind of give you a sense of, how to deal with the situation and just guidance. And so the parliamentarian is an expert on the rules that we use here in the assembly. So whether it's assembly rules, joint rules, or the Constitution, they're really the expert if there's ever a question as to the process. So the main responsibility of the chief clerk's office. So the office is responsible for producing and publishing all legislative publications for the assembly. And we'll go into more detail of what those legislative publications are later in this presentation. The chief clerk office also assists in the processing of legislation at every stage of its development, and we receive and record each vote taken by assembly members during floor session and committee hearings. So we're really much aware of what's happening with the bills at all times. We also coordinate the daily flow of business on the assembly floor. So here's a map of the legislative cycle. And so every box here is a different step of the cycle. And the Office of the Chief Clerk is very hands-on through every single step, whether it's at the beginning with bill introductions to its time in committee hearings. If the bill passes out of committee, it makes its way to the floor, or third reading as we call it. And if it passes off the floor, it gets sent to the Senate where it goes through a very similar, actually goes through the exact same process in the Senate. And then if the Senate passes the bill, if it's amended, it comes back to the Assembly to be voted on. If there aren't amendments to the bill, when it passes the Senate, it still comes back to the Assembly, but we send it over to the governor, and where the governor gets to decide if he's going to sign it into law or if he's going to veto the bill. Similar down here with Senate bills, it starts in the Senate, and we're still monitoring Senate bills at the beginning because we're watching to see which ones come over to the Assembly later on. And like I said, every single one of these boxes is a different step in the process, and we are very much hands-on and tracking the bill throughout the entire process and helping to assist with any questions that arise throughout the entire cycle. So the main functions of the chief clerk. The chief clerk is the central administrative hub that receives, transmits, and processes essential legislative information to legislators, and the public. So the main takeaway from this slide really is this desk right here. This is the assembly desk. So this desk is in the assembly chamber, and it is a privilege to be able to work on the assembly floor at the desk because not too many people get access to the assembly floor. It's really just the assembly members, the office of the chief clerk, and our security, which is our sergeant in arms. So being able to have that privilege and that front seat, that front row ticket to all the action is it's a great opportunity that we are given by working for the office of the chief clerk. And that front row ticket gives you access to see, sometimes it could be a lot of debate on the floor if the bill is, controversial, or perhaps the member is trying to get to a certain vote count. And so sometimes you see things like the entire chamber gets quiet as the votes are being counted. Sometimes you'll see moments of celebration. Perhaps they're highlighting a member of the community, or maybe like a staff member. And it's really like a different perspective because you get to see the members actually like in action on the floor, voting on the bills, passing legislation. And it's really a unique opportunity, one that not too many people get the opportunity to do. And it's I would say, one of the perks of being a part of the chief clerk's office. So more about the assembly desk. So we ensure the integrity of the process and accurately count the votes for the assembly members. We also receive bills and resolutions presented to the desk for their formal introduction. So that's kind of what you're seeing in this picture. Here we have a former assembly member, and he is introducing a bill to our chief clerk. So if you are a part of our internship program, you could very much be sitting at the desk helping with the bill intros. We also process committee and floor amendments. So anytime a bill is changed or the amendments are proposed to change the bill, the office of the chief clerk processes those amendments. And we also print correspondence from assembly leadership, the Senate, and the governor. So we're very much a active role in the whole conversation. So now on to the publications. So we're going to start with the daily file. So the Assembly daily file is the agenda of the House. And what that kind of means is, in the daily file, we list where the bills are. If they're in committee, when the committee hearing is, what day, time, location, what bills that committee is going to hear. It is in the daily file, as well as what bills are on third reading and are eligible to be taken up on the floor. So the daily file, one of the purposes for it is that there are many rules that require public notice for where bills are, and this is the way to do so. If anyone wants to know, like I said, when a bill is being heard in committee or if it's on its way to the floor, the daily file is like their resource to figure out where the bill is. Onto the daily journal. So the journal team, they maintain the official chronological record for the proceedings of the assembly. So if you are in a club, perhaps there's someone in a role of secretary, and perhaps they take the minutes for the meeting, and then they distribute those minutes to all the other club members so that you know what happened on what day. That's what our journal team does, but they do it for the entire assembly. So they are taking notes, or they're taking the minutes during floor session to see who voted on what bill, who spoke for which bill, and what talking points were said. They also note what happened in committee hearings. So if you ever need to know what happened at the assembly on a specific day, you can always use the daily journal of that day to kind of go see, what happened, what the agenda was. And at the end of the session, that journal is certified, indexed, and bound, so that if you ever need to use it as a resource, you can go ahead and select the year and see what happened to a bill on a specific day of that year. So our history team, our history publication is a summary of every action taken on each bill or resolution during the legislative session. So similar to our journal team, where they record everything that happens in the day, the history team, they sorry, one second. So the history team records what happens throughout every step of the bill cycle for the assembly bill, and they make sure that information is condensed into like a summary, and then that information is put onto LIS or legislative info, leg info uh, website, which the public has access to. So if you ever want to know what happened to a specific bill, you can go on the Ledge Info website and type in that bill number, go to history, see how it was reported out of committee or really any, you can see the whole history of that bill and the different steps that it during the legislative cycle. So the assembly floor analysis. So the assembly floor analysis. Okay, so assembly floor analysis, AFA. So we, which, sorry if I didn't say it already, but I'm the director of this unit, and we provide assembly members an analysis on every bill eligible to be taken up on the floor. Not just members, but we also provide it to the public. And so we do not write the analysis ourselves. The committee consultants provide it to us, and then we proofread, vet, and we conform the analysis to a consistent style so that all the analysis look very similar in that you know where to find the information, whether it's a summary or if it's oppose or arguments in oppose or support. Every single analysis, you'll know where to locate that information. So like I said, we provide this analysis on every bill eligible to be taken up on the floor. And while we're working on the current analysis for the current session, we're also archiving analysis for the previous session. So my team right now is currently finishing up archiving uh, the analysis for the 2021-22 session. And then while we're doing this, we also during the legislative year, we also process amendments on bills on the floor. So if an office needs to amend a bill and it's on third reading, they come to the chief clerk and we help them by processing it. And if they have any questions, we help assist them. And then our final unit that we're going to talk about is engrossing and enrolling, E&E. So the E&E staff is responsible for proofreading every version of each assembly measure as it moves through the legislative process. So they oversee roughly 3,700 legislative measures in a 2-year cycle, and they make sure the language of the bill is accurate every time the bill is changed. And once they're done, they deliver the final version of the bill to the governor. So it's a really cool unit to be a part of if you love reading and checking for grammar. And if those are things that you enjoy doing, then E&E is a good spot to be in. So then the front office. If you come into room 319 in the Capitol and you walk in through our front door, you will, this picture is what you will see. So our front office team manages correspondence and inquiries from members, staff, advocacy groups, lobbyists, and constituents. So they do a really good job at directing the question to whichever unit can best answer the question. And if you also walk into our front office, you will see a whole bunch of different resources. These are all different resources that our interns use, not just to get not just to learn about the history of the Capitol, but also the rules that we use throughout our legislative cycle. And if you're an intern, you also potentially get the opportunity to work to edit these documents to make sure that they are up to date and that we are giving the public, the most recent information. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about our office and the different publications. And I will pass it on to Kristen.
All right, everyone. I'm doing the second half of the presentation, which talks specifically about the internship program. So let's talk about why you'd want to be a part of the chief clerk's office and why being an intern in our office would be a great experience. So the first thing I always like to highlight is although we have set roles for interns, we do a lot of cross training, not only for different roles for the interns we have, but maybe other office duties in general. Another great thing is you get exclusive access to the floor. As kind of Victoria highlighted earlier in the presentation, that is a very unique experience. The only people allowed on the floor during floor session are the sergeants, the LDC staff, of course, the members, and then our office staff. So as an intern, you have access to the floor. Not even the chief of staff of the speaker has access to the floor. So that's kind of how important it is. We also offer a really special guest speaker program. We meet with legislators, chief of staff, lobbyists. We have a big pool of those that we pull from our internship program, but also from out and around the Capitol. So we try to round it out so you have a full idea of how the legislature works and how our local government works. Then we also are a great hub for networking and just meeting people in general in the Capitol. So what's going to happen is when you work here, either it's maybe a guest speaker you saw, or someone that's a different internship program, or someone in a legislative office like a chief of staff or a committee staff. You're going to meet someone that's probably going to be, interesting to you, maybe in a field you're interested in, and you're going to have that direct ability to be able to meet with them. So that's one of the highlights of our program for sure. And then when we have some more of the downtime, which is a little bit rare, but we'd like to keep you busy by going on special tours that we take you on. We have here listed on the slide below some locations. One of the ones that I really like is we do the cupola tour. So it's basically the top inner part of the Capitol. So you'll have one of the best views of Sacramento. But we also do informational ones to understand how like the Office of State Publishing works and how bills and everything is ever published in the state. That's where it's done. The one big thing, and I know we say this near the bottom, but it's probably the reason why you're looking at this slideshow presentation. We do have salary positions. It's $3,500 a month. And this year is unique because we're also offering benefits. So I know that is probably the biggest perk you're looking for, but there's a reason why that's all established that way, which I'll talk to in the next slide. And in the flow and time of our internship programs, actually really perfect if you plan to become a fellow in the fellowship program, either the Assembly, the Senate, or the executive branch offers. The reason why we highlight it here is that you could apply to our office, get our internship, and then apply to the fellowship. And then as soon as our internship ends in September, the fellowship begins in October. So we've had definitely a bunch of people make that kind of transition. We've accepted in both programs. So it's definitely a great opportunity. Now, the only thing to note is that for a fellowship program, you had to have graduated to be a part of it. You can't be a current student. So here's probably the most important slide you want to look at because it has all the key information regarding to our office and whether you're going to be able to be a part of the experience or not. The first thing is we begin on February 3rd and we go all the way to September 30th. Now, I want to be clear that this is an entire 8-month program where it's in person only. We don't offer any positions or anything that is remote. I know for UC Merced, I just want to highlight that because if you're going to be a part of our program, you're basically going to be moving here and working here. It's a full-time position, basically. We also don't offer any exceptions for classes or other activities during work hours. There also is potential for late hours on any given day and weekends, but we'll let you know ahead of time when those kind of situations exist. There are 4 positions we're offering, 2 desk interns. Basically, you're going to be the one team part of the internship where you actually work with another co-intern collaboratively, even though all of them work together at different points in the process, but those 2 specifically work together a lot. And they basically not only get to work at the desk, but they get to process a lot of the day-to-day flow of business. Then we have the AFA intern, which will be under Victoria, handling all the floor analysis component. And then we have the grossing and rolling intern that's in one of our other offices that I'll discuss later. So those are the 4 positions that we're offering. And the great thing is that just to highlight it, even though you're one of these positions, there's a lot of cross training. So there's a good chance you're going to learn another intern's role. So that's one of the great parts about our program. Now, if you see what I have here on bold is the nonpartisan process, not policy. The reason why I need to highlight that is when you think of a capital internship, you're probably thinking something political nature involving maybe moving policy and policy development. That's not who we are. You have to think of us, we're kind of like the referees in the game. So we're not partisan, we're not for either side. We're just making sure that the process of how things go runs smoothly. So if you're really interested in knowing how that's done, that's great. Also, interns in our program get a really big leg up compared to other programs because the key part is knowing how things move in the legislature. You're going to become experts by the end of your time here. So that'll be very valuable too if you want to work in the Capitol. So what we're looking for, the best ideal situations are those that are seniors and recent graduates, just because there's probably going to be little to no conflicts in your schedule. We can accept juniors, and we even accepted a sophomore one time, but they made a crazy amount of scheduling maneuvering to make it work, because remember, we don't offer any exceptions to take classes during the day. So as long as you're able to meet kind of those requirements, we're willing to work with you. But obviously, again, no exceptions in that regard. For if you are someone that has graduated, December 2023 is the cutoff. So if you're beyond that date, we wouldn't be able to accept you, but you could definitely submit something to the fellowship program for sure. And also any major, you don't have to be a government major. We've always had a wide ranging amount of majors, whether it's been bioscience, we have those English major, history major, a great amount of breadth of different types of majors that take part of our program. And it's great because it's added little nuggets to everyone's kind of learning experience. And we really want certain, now I'm going to list just some key characteristics that are kind of basic, but this is what our most successful interns have for that going for them. It's someone who has great attention to detail and it likes to proofread things, likes to catch errors. If you are able to work under pressure for long hours, because when the legislature is in session, we're in session. So sometimes we're here really late in the night, and you got to be able to perform just as the same as you got here in the morning at 9 a.m. Another big thing is discretion and good judgment. You're going to be around a lot of conversations between the members, and our office, one of our pride known things is we are able to keep everything private. So that means they can trust us to be around kind of sensitive conversations and knowing things beforehand. So you got to have good discretion. And then lastly, the ability to work in a team environment. Yes, there's going to be definitely individualistic things you'll be doing during your internship, but we are heavy on doing things in teams, in team settings, and working with different units. So there's a lot of collaboration. So you got to be good at that. Now let's quickly go over the application process. I just want to highlight there are 4 documents you're going to have to email to myself and Victoria, and I'm going to go through one of them, each one at a time. So the first one is the application itself, and that's over to the right. It's on our website. It's just a one sheet. You just fill in all the information. The second thing is there's a written response that you're going to have to write up about, and that's just so we could see just your writing style, and if you're able to answer a simple question, and to see kind of your interest and why you want to be part of the internship program. So make sure you include that in a separate document. The third thing we need is a resume. And the fourth thing is a list of references. So make sure those are 4 separate documents when you email them. These would all be due at November 21st at 5 p.m. And remember, just a reminder, it's both to Victoria and me for the emails if you plan to apply. What's going to happen is that very next day, we're going to call all those that applied on Friday, November 22nd. So if you get a random phone call, maybe pick it up, because it might be us giving you a call to see when you can meet with us for an interview. Our plan right now is to meet on December 4th and 5th for interviews. They'll be during the day. There will be a lot of time slots. If you are from UC Merced, we do give you the preference of times first. That way, because we know you have to travel to get here. So we're going to give you as much leeway and try to make it as accommodating as possible for you. And then we have a quick decision process. So you're going to know probably by the next week, or no later than 2 weeks after you meet with us, whether you got the internship or not. Now, we like to also highlight how you can be successful in our interview process and just generally applying to our office, because we're not just any basic internship program. We really look into the weeds on details. We ask a lot of questions because we want to get to know you. So I just want to go over some of the most important parts of our process. So the number one thing is proofing your application, especially the written response part. When we call you or if we email you, please respond quickly. We actually know how quick the response was, what the response was. To the right is our brochure. It's also on our website. There may or may not be questions that are asked from the panel related to the brochure. So maybe it's good for you to take a look at that. We also want really strong references. Please do not include references that are family or friends, or maybe coworkers that weren't your managers. So try to get maybe professors, managers that you've worked with, people in those kind of positions. As you can see, Victoria and I, we dress professional even for our Zoom, and that is our office culture. And so we would expect, because that's how we are during session, we expect the same for you. So I might advise you to dress professionally for the interview. I know this one's harder for you, but if you're able to visit the Capitol beforehand, that's always great. Maybe you're in the area just to check out to see where our office is, how to get in with security and whatnot. So that way, if you do get here, it's not going to hold you up because you didn't know where you were going. And then if, just a pro tip, if you need to park, get the Park mobile app, it'll open up your ability to park all around the Capitol to make it easier for you. So that's pretty much everything about the Chief Clerk's internship program. If you want more information, the website right there in the middle of the screen, that is where you can go. You can learn more about everything here. You see the brochure, the applications there. And then also, if you want to just email myself or Victoria directly, we're happy to answer any questions. So with that, thank you for taking the time and feel free to reach out. Thank you.